Mayor Alson, it's me. I don't want to hurt you, but even more so, I don't want you to hurt me. Okay, if you want to make things complicated, let's get dangerous. Today on the Comic Book Report, Darkwing Duck, Foul Play. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back in the world of Dynamite Entertainment covering Darkwing Duck. This is a fun Disney property that I watched a ton on the Disney Channel growing up. This is a comic book based on an animated series property, much like the Dynamite Gargoyles books they've been releasing. I know I reviewed a collection of that not too long ago. But yeah, I was really excited to jump into this one. Like I said, this was a cartoon series I really enjoyed once upon a time, and I was pretty excited when I found out Dynamite was doing more within this creative sandbox. Before we jump into today's review, I would just like to say a quick thank you to those at Dynamite Entertainment who sent this copy in exchange for a review. Thanks again, and let's go ahead and get started. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Amanda Deibert and penciled by Carlo Loro. The comics in this volume were published by Dynamite Entertainment beginning in 2023. The volume itself collects Darkwing Duck issues 1 through 6. And finally, this is a standard size trade paperback edition with nice glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 160 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that standard size trade paperback from Dynamite Entertainment. Really like this here. I love the cover we get of Darkwing Duck. I think he looks heroic and just absolutely the character I remember from the cartoon series. Foul Play is also the title of this, and FOWL is an acronym for an evil organization, in case you were wondering what's going on with how it's spelled there. Transitioning to the spine, we have a beautiful field of yellow with the kind of purple Darkwing Duck colors in the font. I do like that we have the publisher, title, creators, and we have a nice little number 1 there at the bottom of volume 1, indicating that there's going to be much more in the world of Darkwing Duck. I love to see it, and after reading this first volume, I'll say even right here, I would definitely read more. On the back of this collection, we have some descriptions, a little bit of accolades or reviews, we have the pricing information, publisher, what it collects, we have an all ages age rating, which I do think is appropriate personally for this. The back is also quite glossy and shiny, you can see a little reflection of me there, hey everyone. But yeah, this is the back of the collection. Overall, no real thrills here, no artwork, I would have liked to see a little bit of that, but otherwise a pretty straightforward back. Now, before we dive into the collection proper, I did just want to show a quick look at that glued binding, just so everyone can get an idea of what it looks like. We do have a little bit of gutter loss here, nothing too critical in my mind. It's a pretty straightforward trade paperback kind of binding, at least in my mind. I have no complaints on my end, but again, just wanted to give prospective collectors out there an idea of what you can expect for this release. I should say as well, I do believe Dynamite also released this in a standard size hardcover, but I can just speak about this trade paperback. As we jump into the collection itself, we do have a title page, publication information page, creator breakdown, and then we do have a nice little chapter break before jumping into the issue 1 cover. After that, of course, we go into the issue itself. One thing I did really like about this trade paperback collection is we do have these nice stylized chapter breaks with the kind of Darkwing Duck silhouette symbol, the little number of what issue it is, and then on the following page we always have the cover reproduced. Really nice touch here. I've noticed Dynamite's done this with some other releases that I've seen, things like the Maleficent collection or Lilo and Stitch even, but again, like seeing it, I always love to see covers reproduced. Anyway, as we dive into the collection itself, what can you expect from Darkwing Duck? What is Foul Play? What is this all about? And perhaps most importantly, can you read this as a new reader? Do you have to have any reference or knowledge to the animated series to enjoy this book? Overall, I would say this book is extremely new reader friendly. That being said, I did watch this series in the 90s, but it's probably been about that long since I've actually revisited this world, give or take. So I was a little bit rusty on some of the details and characters involved, but it all came back to me very quickly. And I do think this does cater quite nicely to those that want to experience Darkwing Duck for the first time, because I do think it fills in the gaps with what you need. Essentially, Darkwing Duck is a kind of Batman-esque character. We have a caped vigilante who basically tries to save his city. He has lots of fun gadgets or inventions, although he's a lot more quippy and cheeky than a lot of incarnations of the Dark Knight, except for maybe something like Adam West, for example. Anyway, we have him try to save his city. He has a young daughter who is pretty precocious and a lot of fun. He has an assistant who basically helps him fly his plane and is just a good kind of ally or sidekick. And then he has a cavalcade of rich villainous characters that are often costumed and come against him in various ways. Anyway, at the beginning of this series, we have Darkwing Duck being sort of honored at a town gathering where the mayor's gonna unveil a statue of him, and he is a bit, I wouldn't say he's the most humble guy around, so he's really kind of a little puffed up, and he's excited for the accolades and the rewards and just being recognized in this way. However, the fanfare is cut a bit short when all of those in attendance who have their cell phones are kind of put under a kind of hypnotic suggestion. We find out this is at the hands of one of his most villainous villains, Megavolt, who's used the technology to essentially turn everyone against Darkwing Duck to serve his ultimate ends. This was a really fun way to kick off this collection. Megavolt for me was a very visually just reminiscent or nostalgic kind of character. I immediately remembered this character when I saw the character model. He's of course kind of a lightning-based villain character. But yeah, really fun stuff. From there we have Darkwing basically trying to release everyone from the sway of these weird cell phones that Megavolt kind of has set up here. We have him trying to stop the bad guy. We're introduced to some of his other characters like Goss or Gosselin, his daughter, Launchpad, his assistant, and we just get to see him flee into action. Across these 6 issues, we run into a lot of the rogues gallery of villains for Darkwing Duck, and that's one of the things I like. While these issues feel in some ways episodic and self-contained, there is a really big through line, and one issue does blend pretty seamlessly into the next. Each issue introduces us, or reintroduces us rather, to one of his most notorious villains. We have Dr. Reginald Bushroot, a kind of plant-based creature villain. We have the Liquidator, who was thought defeated. He's kind of a water dog creature. We have Crackerjack, which is sort of this clown villain, very reminiscent of something like the Joker, and that was really fun. And then toward the end of the collection, we're even introduced to one of my favorite villains in the Darkwing Duck universe. Again, spoiler here, Negaduck. Really, really fun. We have a couple other villains show up, but ultimately this really culminates with kind of the reintroduction of FOWL, which is sort of the fiendish organization for world larceny. It's this kind of evil terrorist organization, villainous group. Think like Spectre for James Bond or any other kind of cabal of evil villains. And ultimately, I should have seen it coming, especially with the title of this collection, but I do think it was fun that everything kind of led to the formation of this evil group. And to stop them, we had Darkwing Duck, we had his daughter Gosselin, we had Launchpad, and we even had some of the other good duck characters like Gizmo Duck and some of these others. I really enjoyed this run. I really can't tell you how much I enjoyed my nostalgic trip through these 6 issues, and I think this is just the beginning as well. That volume 1 on the spine seems to suggest that more happened on from here, but I think that this was a fantastic starting point. I think even if the series were to have capped here, it was enough of a nostalgia trip, and we got so many of my favorite characters that I just was grinning from ear to ear reading this book. And that's something I've said with a lot of these Disney-based Dynamite properties. Like something like Lilo and Stitch, this is also rated for all ages, and I can attest to that. I do think that this is really friendly to just about any audience out there. And while do I think it's helpful to have watched some Darkwing Duck or have any kind of passing knowledge of this character to enjoy this book? Oh, certainly, especially because so much of my enjoyment came from nostalgia. But I do think if you want to dive into this is still a fine place to start. You have all the details you need. You definitely get a feel for these characters, their quirks and personalities, the way they speak, inflections, everything you can kind of read in as you make your way through. And that's actually actually really something I can praise about the creators. I do think that they made this so accessible as an on-ramp for new and returning fans of the franchise. For me, someone who's returning in many ways after decades, it was a great way to just, again, hit nostalgia, but also refresh me on who these characters were. I felt like as they rolled in the supporting cast or even the villains, every time I saw them show up, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember them, or oh yeah, this character. And it was just really a fun ride here. I think because Darkwing Duck is very much kind of an homage to something like Batman, or it's almost like a spoof or parody, there's a lot of just really, really fun things here this does to poke fun at your standard vigilante-based superhero comics. I do like the quippiness, I do like the quirks of this character. In his more mundane moments, he even tries to lay down the mantle of Darkwing Duck to keep his daughter safe, before picking it back up, realizing she's endangered, and he actually can solve those problems. I do like the art direction throughout this as well. From memory, this is really, really loyal to the character models we got in the actual animated series. I think if you went from the animated series directly into this comic book, you really wouldn't be jarred at all. You wouldn't be pulled out from it, because there is that kind of visual fidelity to these characters, and I think that should be absolutely commended from the series artists. And while the plot really boiled down to Darkwing Duck fights Villain 1, Darkwing Duck fights Villain 2, Darkwing Duck fights all villains, there's so much more than that. Honestly, there's some great character moments here between father and daughter, between this guy and his allies. We have some great villainous interactions and quips. We have right triumphing over evil. We have some great secondary characters too, like Goslin's friend. We even have kind of a love interest angle, which I liked. Like I mentioned earlier, the kind of him laying down his mantle of the hero only to pick it back up again to do what's best. I just really liked all of it. I think that there's a lot going on here other than just good guy beats bad guy, but it's still packaged in a way that is accessible to, again, that full range of readers or demographics. The art is beautiful and vibrant. I think the colorist should also be commended. Everything is so saturated in that great Saturday morning cartoon kind of way. Again, I was just really impressed by this. I think that it's really fun to see so much of the licensed properties that Dynamite has right now. As a huge Disney fan myself, this is another one that I've wanted to check out for some time, and I'm really happy I finally had an opportunity to make my way through. Again, the nostalgia was definitely a huge selling point for me looking into this title, but I think for someone that wants to check out this book, or if you want to brush up on this character, this is a really fun way to do so. I think there's enough in and of itself with the comic to enjoy it all on its own merit, but certainly if you have the nostalgia bump, it will help across this book. As we make our way to the back of the collection, we do have a great cover art gallery. They're all thumbnailized. We don't have them in full page, unfortunately, but we do have so many of the variant covers reproduced here in these little thumbnails, and we do have a breakdown of the creators who worked on each of these thumbnails throughout. I thought that this was a really nice extra to include at the back of this book. Again, I have seen it in collections like the Lilo and Stitch or the Disney Villains Maleficent recently, so this was not an unfamiliar format for me to see at the end of a Dynamite collected edition, but I was still really happy they included it. It was really a joy to see and a fun way to cap the book. And after a brief ad for another Darkwing Duck collection, that really brings us to the end of this trade paperback collection for Darkwing Duck Foul Play. I had a ton of fun with this. I'd love to hear what other people thought, and now all that's left to do is to give this trade paperback a grade. For a series that simultaneously hits on nostalgia while creating a perfect on-ramp for new readers, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Darkwing Duck Foul Play a B. Yes, for me, this is definitely an above-average read. The art throughout this collection is consistent and captivating and is really, really loyal to the animated series, which I loved. The plotting was fun, we got to see a lot of great recurring characters from the animated series, and I think this is a great example of a comic that caters to all audiences. I sincerely hope this is just the beginning, because I'm ready to continue on with this series, having finished this first volume. But I would really like to know what you think. Have you been reading Darkwing Duck? Are you a fan of the animated series? I'd love to get some good discussion going. And hey, while we're talking, are there any other Dynamite comics you would recommend? I would personally love to see those comments as well. A huge thank you for everyone who's been watching this review, and of course a thank you to Dynamite for providing this copy for review. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video a like, that comment we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, have a good one.